Hi, in this video we'll take a look at the AJAX compression feature of the 2010 Volume 1 release of the ASP.NET product. This feature allows you to trim down the response size whenever there's an AJAX callback from the client. This helps you to save bandwidth and the round trip time that it takes for an operation to be completed. So in case of a hierarchical data grid or the simple web data grid, things like paging, sorting, filtering, and in terms of web data tree, load on demand type features, and the web combo filtering and auto suggest, these are all AJAX operations. So using this feature will help you trim down those response sizes coming down the wire to the client, and also with the time that it takes to complete the entire round trip. So let's get started and learn how to enable this feature in your projects. What I have in front of me is Visual Studio 2008. This would be available in both 2005, 2008, and 2010, Visual Studio 2010 as well. I have a simple script manager on my page that's required by the ASP and AJAX control. Then I have customers and invoices, SQL data source controls. These are being pulled directly from Northwind database. And then I have a web hierarchical data source, which basically creates a relationship between customers and invoices and then binds it to the web hierarchical data grid. So you can see that there are two different levels that are presently available in the web hierarchical data grid. So if I move over to the source, it's basically simply drag and drop out of the toolbox and just setting up the default settings for all of these controls. And in the web hierarchical data grid, again, we just simply drag and drop, set the data source, and we have just enabled some of the AJAX features so that we can kind of monitor what this AJAX compression helps in terms of gaining the bandwidth and the performance of the page. So I'm going to move back to the design view. I'm going to run this page in the browser. And I'm using Firefox and Firebug to monitor the HTTP response that's going to happen between the client and the server. So I have predefined set of operations that I'm going to perform on this grid. So first of all, I'm going to click on contact name header. And for those of you who are not familiar with Firebug, it basically allows you to monitor different page operations for optimizations, for debugging, and so forth. So what I'm using the feature of Firebug right now is kind of monitor the XML HTTP requests. And here I have different columns which tells me the status, domain, size, timeline, and the actual time it took for the round trip to be completed. So we'll monitor the size field for now. So when I did a sorting operation, it took about 53 kilobytes, the actual size, to be completed. The next thing I'm going to do on this grid is I'm going to move to page number 2. When I did that, here you can see that there's a new record being added, which was basically telling me how long it took the grid, or what was the size of the grid when it moved over to page number 2. Next, I'm going to come back up here and I am going to expand the first 2 rows of this grid because it's a hierarchical grid. So I have customers and I want to see invoices, so I can expand this row here. And this was the size of the when I expand this row. Let me come up here and expand this row. This was the size again when I expanded the first row, and finally I'm going to complete this whole demo and operation with taking the contact title and grouping by that column. So we're basically going to use these 5 different operations as sort of our to gauge as to what benefits the AJAX compression brings to the table when you enable it. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to take a screenshot of this operation so that when we do with AJAX compression enable, we can see the clear differences. And I'm going to take a quick shot of this piece of the page. And just so that you can see, I have it stored here and inside of Snagit. I'm going to move it off the screen, and then what we're going to do here, we're going to enable AJAX compression. So I'm going to clear this thread here, and I'm going to go back to my Visual Studio, and in the web config, what I'm going to do is I have this line commented out, as you can see, and this is basically an HTTP module which automatically gets triggered anytime there's an AJAX callback for one of our controls. It's basically one line. That's all you need to enable AJAX compression. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to come here and uncomment this line and kind of see it again. So what you have is HTTP module name is compression. The type is Infogesics Web UI Framework Compression. This is where the module sits in. Then you have the actual versioning of the DLL. And finally the public key token. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to switch back to my Firefox browser, and I'm going to refresh this page. Okay, so once the page is back up, all I'm going to do is I'm going to perform the same operations in the same order, and you'll see the timeline being updated and the request being updated at the bottom here in Firefox. So I'm going to sort on contact name again. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to page the grid. Then I'm going to expand the first two rows like I did before. And finally, I'm going to group by the contact title column here. Okay, so now we have all these operations completed, and we can see here the size are very different than we had before. So let me bring in the actual screenshot that we took before onto this screen so that we can actually see the differences. Let me narrow it down a little bit. Okay, so here you can clearly see the difference in the response sizes when you have AJAX compression enabled and when you didn't have enabled. So all it takes you to enable this feature is basically go into your web config and put that HTTP handler, and you get all the benefits for this AJAX compression features immediately. Thanks for watching this video. I hope it was helpful.
Infragistics. On the web at infragistics.com.